reason we set up this art history series is to bring this art in the Dane art collection out to the people, because as you know, our museum is under construction. We have a lot of really fine artists in the county, the three that I mentioned, plus Lloyd Herfindahl, who is from Outlet. We should be having 4 of these with him included. But anyway, there's a great deal of history to be learned about these artists and what they have brought to Sueur County. So there's a pretty deep artistic tradition here. And hopefully we can impart some of the information, some of the images onto you folks, and you can go on and tell the next generation about the artists in Sueur. One of the reasons that Dave couldn't make it tonight was he claims he's been in his log cabin studio cleaning, doing, organizing paperwork and whatnot. And one thing that kind of grabbed my attention was he's got all these letters from all these U.S. presidents laying around. And they could kind of get in the way of a guy doing his work. So he's getting all that stuff organized, and seriously, that's what he's doing. So in the middle of his recuperation, he's still painting 6 hours a day. So, yeah. I don't do anything for 6 hours a day. Any artwork in the collection is the largest piece-by-piece collection outside of the St. Paul History Museum. They have quite a collection too. So, but Virginia Dane, his wife, made sure that he was well represented. Nothing happens in a vacuum, right? Anything that exists today is usually here because of a reason, right? Well, I'm not going to give you a reason why wildlife art is what it is, but to answer the question of why are we emulating these animals and birds in our artwork, well, it's a centuries-old tradition, and it goes back to the caves in Lascaux in southern where in an effort of symbolizing or spiritual practice of painting the bulls and the horses and stuff on the cave walls, somehow that gave them a feeling of mastery in the hunt, or maybe they're looking for, I don't know. I'm not an expert in it. I wasn't there, but I really, truly am amazed at the quality of the artwork 30,000 years ago. So the reasons they did wildlife art then on the cave walls and the reason people do it now are 2 different reasons. So the cave people's reason was symbolic, okay? So the next one is the mosaic in the top right, and that's from ancient Greece. It's a mosaic, a beautiful one, and that was put on a wall. Everyone knows what a mosaic is, and these things transcend time. They've been a part of our cultures for forever. So, and then we kind of go up to Leonardo da Vinci in 1500 and Renaissance, I believe. In that period of time, artwork with animals kind of switches from a symbolic need to more of a scientific, analytical purpose, where, like in this hummingbird drawing, I think he was trying to figure out how to harness the flight patterns that birds had, and how to translate that into a flying apparatus for humans. But anyway, and about between Leonardo's time and ancient Greece, there was also the illuminated manuscripts that they did, and this is well before the printing press. So these druids or people that sat in caves painting these manuscripts did a lot of floral work, but they interspersed a lot of animals in it too. And there was a lot of different colors he used, but a lot of gold plate. And so animals were important even back in medieval times. So then we jump up to John James Audubon in close to the mid-1800s, and this guy did the first book of birds, painted images, and I think he might be considered the father of wildlife art, even though there was kind of a scientific nature involved in it. Everybody's seen Audubon prints, okay? They all started out as paintings, but then they were able to be mass-produced as colored engravings and spread all over the world. So he was the first beneficiary of the printing press and mass distribution of artwork. So anyway, so then we go another 100 years and you have Picasso in 1940. He does the peace dove. I think that's the International Peace logo or something similar to that. But does anybody know about that? Hello, come on in. Got a chair for you here. So anyway, after 1940 is when wildlife art, as we know it, really took off. And there's a number of artists that became quite important to the wildlife art movement, and a fellow named Ding Darling was one of those, and he did a lot of black and white caricatures of animals, but he also was credited with the first duck stamp, federal duck stamp, in 1930 something. So anyway, this timeline is, it's not accurate. You don't go home and say, well, I'm going to look these up and hold Jeff to the accuracy. It's just for fun. Nothing happens in a vacuum, and wildlife art just didn't start one day 100 years ago. So, okay, so back to David Maass. Everyone is influenced by another. We're all here to support one another, and especially fathers and children, or parents and children. And David was exposed to the outdoors. His mother and his stepfather, Kelly, brought him hunting quite a bit. And David, I think before he started really getting used to carrying a shotgun, he would bring pigeons and ducks home, kind of like Roger Price did. And he had like a little hospital in his house where he would nurse these birds back to health. And so the idea of conservation was deeply rooted in David, even before he started doing wildlife art. So in addition to being introduced to hunting by his stepfather, Kelly, his stepfather, also supported David's artwork, his drawing, his paintings. And I think that's really important, that if you all have any children or grandchildren, that you support their endeavors, whether it's art or music, whatever. I think kids these days and in years past all need a little bit of guidance and support from older folks that they trust. So as David graduated from school in Rochester, incidentally, he was born in Rochester in 1929, and that was not a good year for our country. But it was a good year for us because that's when Dave was born, in 1929. And so I might say that when he graduated from high school, he immediately started working at Jostens Jewelry Company in Otana, but not in the art department. He was a tool and die person, which is a lot different than designing classrooms. But after 18 months or so, he was promoted into the art department, where he was able to work his way up to be art director. And so this job provided him the chance to sharpen up his design skills, because what he did was design rings, and graphic design is art, and that's what my degree is in. And Donovan's granddaughters just graduated with graphic design degrees, but David never had to go to art school. He was naturally gifted, and he benefited from a workmate. His name was Sueur that really helped Dave learn how to paint and how to set up a composition. And I'll explain what those terms mean in a little bit. But David, one of the things that Dave benefited from the most being art director was he would go all around to these different companies. I don't know if he flew or took a bus or just what happened, but he would meet with these companies and he would sell them his designs that he made for Johnston's. Okay? And then if he was successful, the company back in Owatonna would start manufacturing the rings. Okay? So the art director in that position was a salesman of sorts too. And perhaps even these companies would say to Dave, I like your design, but could you do this, or could you adjust it? Could you make these considerations? So that's probably what he was doing. A hat of rings on there were Green Bay Packer rings, and I wanted to find Minnesota Viking rings, but they don't make any for the Vikings because they never won a Super Bowl. Okay, but Green Bay. So sandwiched in between two stints at Johnston was 2 years of United States Marine Corps for Dave, and the 2 years were in the early 1950s, and then at some point he served in the reserves as well. I assume that's in the Marine Corps. But anyway, as soon as he got out after his first 2 years in the Marine Corps, he did go back to Owatonna to his job. And Dave established a lot of contacts with a lot of people, and that helped him as an artist because they all got a chance to see what a whiz he was designing classrooms. So when he decided to go on his own, guess what? He had a whole list of people, influential people that he could call and let them know that he was a full-time. In 1861, Dave got a little bit sick and tired of the corporate world, and his heart's desire was to be a full-time painter, a full-time artist. And it's not an easy thing to do, to leave the quote-unquote security of a steady paycheck to maybe you might have enough money to pay your bills and maybe you won't, but at least you'll be happy, right? And Dave, he had a great work ethic, and after just a couple years of being on his own, he painted this painting, and it was his first cover design for Ducks Unlimited, and that was in 1963. And Dave is the most, let's see, how do I say this? Dave's artwork has appeared on more covers of Ducks Unlimited than any other artist, and that's a pretty important note to remember. His work is that special, and it really captures the outdoors as it really is. So anyway, Ducks Unlimited is a huge corporation, conglomerate, and they have a magazine that is second to none for outdoorsmen, or people that like the outdoors. Just as kind of a aside, the top part on the magazine there, you can barely see the guy's name, but it says Price. And that's Roger Price that did the masthead of that. And I'm sure he was proud of that, even though the other guy got the cover design. But Roger did a lot of black and white artwork, illustration. Contemporaries, people or other artists who inspired David to paint and become what he is today. The first fellow was Sueur County. Of course, he was David's workmate down at Owatonna. And I'd like to mention now that Owatonna has been you might say, a hotbed for artists for 50, 60, 70 years because of Jostens and some other factors that I don't know about. But there's guys like Jim Killen. I have a list. Jim Killen, David Hagerbauer, William Jarvis, my great uncle, was an artist. He worked in the art department. And there's many, many others. I don't have the list with me, but so they call Owatonna the Minnesota Wildlife Art Capital for that reason, because so many good artists came from there that have devoted their life to conservation and wildlife art. So, but these three guys taught David how to paint, and Sueur County was his workmate at Jostens, and taught him a lot about the underlying structure of paint, which is very important. It's not enough just to throw a bunch of paint on a canvas and say, there it is. There's got to be some rhyme and reason, some structure underneath it, and I think Dave would agree with me. Planning a painting. Okay, so what goes into a painting like this? This particular artwork is from the LCHS collection, and it's a preparatory drawing. And you might think, why on earth do you do a drawing before you do a painting, an oil painting? And well, the reason Dave does it is because he works out all the problems of the potential painting on paper with pencil beforehand, and it saves him a lot of errors in the long run. So once he nails down the composition, which is the composition, like I said, is the underlying structure. This is a picture that I just received from Ann, his wife, today, and it shows Dave painting at the easel in his log cabin. And basically just reaffirming what I just said, that to avoid painting mistakes, David sticks to the initial plan that he worked out on his pencil sketch. And you can see he's left-handed, which I don't know if that's true, because I think I might have flipped the picture. So maybe he's right-handed.
Oh, that's his left hand, isn't it?
That's his right hand, yeah. Because he's married, and that ring, or that hand doesn't have a ring on it. I might say now that one of the things that he really enjoyed learning from, was Sueur County, or one of these guys that were pretty important to him, was he always, when he first started, he just plastered the image of a duck or a bird, and then he did incidental landscape behind it. But now he calls himself a landscape painter. And you'll see when we go through the rest of the slides that he is a master at landscapes. And these are the very same landscapes that these birds inhabit. So it's a winning combination. This slide here you might question, like, why does an artist need collaboration? Does anybody have an idea? Artists aren't really known to be really good at selling their own work. I'm an artist. I hate selling my work. I'd rather not deal with dollars and cents. And I'm not sure about Dave, but one way that he has worked out, uh, he's got this communication vehicle set up with the Russell Fink Gallery, Brown and Bigelow, Wild Wings, down in Lake City, and Minnesota Waterfowl Association. Aside from Minnesota waterfowlers, the top three all reproduce his work in one way or another, and that's sales and marketing. And that's the arm or the branch of David's tree that he doesn't have to deal with. Maybe the only work after the initial painting is just to go to the bank. And he gets the checks in the mail, because what they do, like Brown and Bigelow, they make calendars with his artwork on them, and then at the bottom they insert Dominowski Farms or what have you. Okay, like whoever, like you would go and say, I want calendars for all my employees. Okay, so you can go to Brown and Bigelow online and you'll have your own custom calendars made. And we call that the specialties industry. So it's kind of a different type of business, but the incentive for the artist is your name gets out there, and David's name is it's a household name now. Everybody knows about him. And he's got artwork in millions of homes. And you know, if it's not a calendar, it's a print, or it's an ashtray or a plate. And that's what these specialty items are that are imprinted with his artwork on them. So everyone kind of understand what that means? Now at this point, we're just going to look at some of the artwork in the Sueur County collection, okay? And this particular piece of artwork is one of the originals that David Maass donated to the Sueur County in automatic Majesty blue and teal. And it's a pretty good sized painting, you know, it's about so big. And it's quite beautiful. And it's, you know, all the artwork at the Sueur County Historical Society has been appraised, and it's all insured. Okay, so, and this one appraised, you know, pretty well. So the insurance premium that's paid protects this artifact from being damaged. You can kind of see around here behind that table, there's 3 originals that we've had printed on canvas, and 3 over here. So one of the stipulations about doing this art history program is, oh yeah, well, you can do as many programs as you want, but none of the originals will leave the museum. Okay? So we invested a little bit of money in having the canvas printed for doing programs like this. So that way you can get a close-up of what the actual brush strokes look like. This painting's got a lot going on in there. You can see the waves and how they are coming in at a diagonal. Okay, if they were coming straight in from, you know, like from the lake shore, that'd be pretty dull. But here, you know, he has a sense of drama by having those waves clipping in, you know, with white caps on top. And then above them, you've got this strong diagonal of not just the cattails moving from right to left in a point, but you got the canvas back zooming in, and everyone can kind of see that diagonal, right? You know, from the 2 on the top to the lone one at the bottom on the left. That is a strong diagonal, and that's what, to me, makes this painting really successful, because it's bold and it's simple. And there's no question in your mind that it's a masterful work, because, you know, it's all there, all the details and all the drama associated with it. And this particular painting is a print. Okay, this is another print on Winter Flight, and it's blue wind teal, I believe, and it shows what the environment looks like after the first ice. And this is exactly what's going to be happening here shortly. You know, after the beautiful colored leaves fall off the trees, you're going to have ducks looking for open water. Winter flight. Okay, so what I've shown you so far are just prints and originals out of the collection. And this particular work is not in the collection. I borrowed it from somewhere, somewhere online, and I didn't get the source. Sorry about that. But this was Dave's first duck stamp. I was 14 years old when this came out, and it's just a beautiful painting. Dave, I should say, Dave doesn't draw from nature, he draws from photographs taken from nature, and sometimes he substitutes in his own backgrounds and colors and whatnot. But I couldn't imagine drawing something or painting something like this without some reference. I mean, Dave is known for detail, and the people that judge these duck stamps count feathers. They do. I mean, it's just, it's not for somebody that is not, I don't want to use what I wanted to use, but you really have to have this love for detail. Okay? It's a nice way to put it. This particular painting is my favorite, not just because of the composition, but I just love the contrast in the misty light blue of the background, that pine tree right in the center in the back. It looks like it's really there. And Dave has a really good sense of atmospheric perspective, which means he has the ability to notice when prevailing weather conditions change, how you see certain environments. So the pine tree is kind of a muted blue-green, and it's because it's in the mist, and that's what mist and humidity does to colors. It kind of deadens color. So anyway, we have really large grouse in the foreground, you know, anchored by the birch trees in the back, which is a stable composition, and the composition is moving from lower left to upper right because of the flight path of the birds. So this is the colors of the birch in contrast to the light blue. It's got my vote. This was not a state or a federal stamp. So is the Rough Grouse Society, and I'm not sure what state it's in, but anyway, it's a beautiful painting, and it's already 43 years old. Before I go any further, I want to say, you know, when I set the date for this program, I thought, oh, how great this is going to be. We've got all this wildlife artwork to show everybody from the collection, and it just happens to be hunting season. Dave has done several really great paintings of wild turkeys, and Majestic Tree, always one of those. There are 3 wild turkeys set on a hilltop. And Wild Turkey Federation is a pretty big organization, and this is a stamp. Another one of my favorites, Bob White Quail Research Stamp. I don't think we have too many Bob Whites around here, do we? Anybody know that? I don't think so. Anyway, I think this is from Texas. But anyway, you see, once again, you got that triangular composition underneath, which helps guarantee the success of the painting. And underneath, on the left, you got the cabin, and you know, everything is set in a real nice diagonal. A lot of energy in this painting. The light blue background suggests it's kind of a misty morning and a fall scene. You can tell because of the golden grass and weedy foreground. So it's really lovely and very believable. That's one thing Dave's work shows the most is not just an accuracy, feather count and coloration, but just the mirroring or he puts the right backgrounds in with the animals and the birds that he's painting. So that it makes the scene all that more believable. So it has something to do with the pine trees like that. I look forward to visiting with Dave himself about these paintings, and I'm sure he's got a reason for every painting or some small story or anecdote. So this is Dave's second federal duck stamp, 1982, and the early 80s was really kind of a great time for Dave. He won many stamps and different awards, and the canvas backs here is the federal duck stamp that he won. And so, very simple composition. We got some of the same things going on. You got the linear lake, but it's broken up with, by the pencil grass and the weeds and stuff like that. And so, it seemed like kind of an incidental background, but it's real high drama because of the darker background and the light reflecting off the ducks' backs as they cruise from right to left. So,
Excuse me,
beautiful thing.
do you know when he left the Legion and went to the cities?
I think it was the early 80s.
Okay,
He
that's
moved,
what I thought. He was still painting, he painted the 2 duck stamps here then, right?
Could be. I don't really know. I usually get questions like that no matter how much you study this, like, I do know that he moved his log cabin up at his new place in order to build the house, and that was in the early 80s. So, he may have painted this down here or up there. It's kind of in that in between. Here's the very first Minnesota wild turkey stamp. Do we have any turkey hunters in here? Okay, good. Thank you. Everyone got their stamps for this year, this fall? Probably? Okay. Well, Dave was from Rochester, so the Whitewater Valley is probably near and dear to him. If you've ever been down to Whitewater Park, State Park, you'll notice that it's a total sensory experience because you can hear the turkeys gobbling, you can hear the rough grouse drumming, you can pull a brown trout out of the stream and look at it in amazement. How can something so beautiful come out of such murky water? And then you can find morel mushrooms, and it's heaven down there. So anyway, Dave chose the Whitewater Valley for this turkey stamp, and a beautiful area, and he captured it pretty well. We'll go, we got the Texas Parks and Wildlife stamp from 1984. Dave was busy in the 80s, and he captured a lot of different stamps. And if you remember, his first federal duck stamp was with wood ducks too, so he kind of went back to the lovely, beautiful wood ducks, to get this stamp. But the first federal duck stamp had the ducks going up in the air, and these are kind of coming down and looking like they're ready to land on a log or something. So, incidentally, everyone knows that these ducks live in trees, right? Down in the foothills of Missouri is the scene for this wild turkey stamp, and it's got a nice composition underneath. You got the birch trees coming down at an angle in the center there, and coming out from that is the one turkey, he's got his head lowered, and the other one is, he's probably a scout looking for danger ahead. You know, turkeys, they got really good eyesight, is that correct? Okay. Not so good with smelling, but their eyesight is better than a deer, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So that's what makes them a worthy quarry if you're able to. You know, it's a lot of work going turkey hunting, but it's even more work going duck hunting. I never understood. But then I'm not outdoorsman like Dave either. Okay, first of all, what time do you get up in the morning to go duck hunting? 5 a.m.? Okay, well then the dog is excited to go, and you gotta make sure you feed him, okay? And it's probably raining and cold, okay? And then you gotta have all your decoys set up, and you got this skinny little dang boat that you're all gonna fit in with your dog and the bag of decoys, and you paddle out, and if you're lucky, you don't capsize, okay? It's happened before, okay? And the ducks might be flying, and they might not. And the thrill of the hunt is when the mist clears, ducks flying in. I imagine it's pretty spectacular. Everyone has their own stories, but Dave put a lot of his stories into paintings, and that's why he's been so successful. So to kind of wrap this up a little bit, I want to mention that, you know, a career that spans going on 80 years. He's 92, and he's been at this for 8 decades, over 70 years. Okay, can you imagine devoting your life to doing anything for 70 years? Well, I'm sure Dave would do it all over again, because, I mean, if you don't paint thousands of pictures of a certain theme because you don't like it. I mean, it's in Dave. He's dyed in the wool, and let me get this straight. Now at 92, he paints 6 to 10 major paintings a year. Okay, but before he painted hundreds of paintings a year, hundreds. So most of those thousands of paintings have been reproduced into printed editions of up to 1,000 each. So I'm not up on the new math, but Sally, if you have 1,000 paintings out there and you have 1,000 prints made and sold, what's that, about 1 million? Okay. So using the old math, Dave, that's about 1 million paintings and prints out in the world. Congratulations, you did a good job. Dave was selected Ducks Unlimited Artist of the Year, which is really a wonderful thing to be selected for. You know, out of the hundreds and hundreds of talented artists, Dave's been selected 5 times. And he's got more artwork that has graced the cover of Ducks Unlimited than any other artist. And that in itself is quite an honor as well. A lot of those wetlands are filters for drinking water. The water runs through all these marshes, and it actually cleans the water. And I know that for a fact, and perhaps a lot of you know that too. So anytime you see these precious wetlands being tiled off, okay, for one reason or another, just know that that's one less area for water to be filtered. So anyway, Dave's artwork goes to a lot of really good things, and you know, his efforts of painting, you know, a lot of that money goes to the Sueur County has a huge history of artistic heritage, you know, 3 or 4 totally talented, world-renowned painters. And all those artifacts are being preserved, and just like your home, everyone has to buy insurance, okay? So there's insurance to be purchased, you know, to keep all these artifacts safe. I'm being careful here how I say this. But memberships are really a big deal for the Sueur County Historical Society. The society is on stable footing again. It had a number of years where there was a lot of instability, poor management of fiscal resources and whatnot, but I assure you everything is looking pretty good now. Grants are being written for repair of buildings for a museum. A grant was just written and approved for a microfilm reader. Sally, you know about that? Okay, and that's a pretty big thing. Like if you're interested in genealogy, the Sueur County Historical Society has an awesome genealogy center. Sally is the person you want to talk to about that. And if the world was made of librarians and research people like Sally, it'd be a really nice world. It really would be. And I mean, thanks everybody for showing up. It's been really amazing. Any questions?
We're here, and this program was just perfect. So everybody enjoyed it, and what a big crowd it was.
Everybody wished you were here.
Yeah. So I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going home to bed now.
Hi Dave, it's Ann Grinolds Obernolte, and I'm the daughter of Russ and Lorraine Grinolds, and remember we lived 2 blocks from you on Academy Street? And anyway, hi from the Grinolds family. Where'd you get that?
My brother bought this at a farm auction.
Great artistic.
Great find.